Hey, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. It's a great treat to have a chance to share with you guys at Trailhead DX. Thanks for staying awake and staying alive till this point in the conference. All right, so I'm going to talk about Docker. There's a bunch of stuff that's good to know if you work on the Salesforce platform, right? And there's a bunch of stuff that's good to know if you work on other platforms. And there's a little bit of overlap in between. Salesforce is kind of its own world, right? But there's a little bit of overlap in between, stuff that's helpful to work on. I'm going to zoom in here. All right, right in the middle here, we've got Docker. Docker is something that's useful to know about. It's all over in the non-Salesforce world, but it's not useful for you guys to know at least a little bit about what it is. So I'd like to introduce that topic today. So I'm going to explain how to automate your Salesforce deployments on any CI system using Docker. If you want to get these slides, you just email abd3@sendyourslides.com and then check your spam folder. So I'm going to be talking about containers. So this is the humble shipping container. This is the backbone of global trade. You can put these things on ships, on trains, and on trucks. And they make really good homes for hipsters. So they're very versatile, these containers. But I'm actually going to be talking, whoa, back here. I'm going to talk about this. Docker containers, they represent a cozy and consistent place for code to run. That's the definition. And I'm this person. My name is Andrew Davis. I'm an architect and product manager of AppirioDX. So AppirioDX is a new release management tool for Salesforce. It uses Docker, which is the intersection between these things. I've got a bunch of certifications. And I'm the author of a forthcoming book on Salesforce DX, Practical Guide to DevOps and Lightning Platform. You can't get it now, but if I don't die over the next few months, it'll come out soon. And you can find me on Twitter at ABD3721. OK, we're going to talk about these 6 things. So first of all, what is Docker? Second of all, why should you care? Third, how to use Docker, which is really crazy easy. You'll be shocked. Fourth, how do you create your own Docker images? This is, intermediate level, but it's really not that hard at all. I'm going to layer in one technical note for nerds, and then I'm going to give you a demo. OK. What is Docker? First of all, I want to level set. There are 5 key terms that you need to know. So first of all, containers. What are containers? Containers are lightweight computing environments. This is my laptop. This is a lightweight computing environment. But containers are even lighter. They have 0 weight. They're like virtual machines, but they're even lighter than virtual machines. It's basically a place you can run stuff. Docker. Docker is an open source tool for quickly and reliably creating predefined containers. I'm going to come back and describe what that means in detail, but that's Docker. Dockerhub. Do you guys know GitHub? You know Git? So Dockerhub is like GitHub. It's a repository containing millions of Docker images. So it's a place where you can go and find Docker images, similar to the way you can use GitHub to find Git repos. CI/CD. There's a lot of sessions on that here at the conference. Continuous integration and continuous delivery. What this is, these are practices to ease and automate testing and deployments. Is your testing easy? Are your deployments easy and fast? If not, you need CI/CD. That's what we're talking about. CI tools, these are things like Jenkins, Azure DevOps, Circle CI. There's a lot of them. CI tools are just tools that run automated jobs when a code base changes. That's basically what they're used for. Your code changes a little bit, run another automated job. That's a CI tool that helps you to do CI/CD. OK. As promised, Docker. What is it again? It's an open source tool for quickly and reliably creating predefined containers. So it's open source. It's free. It's trusted, very, very heavily used across the ecosystem. It's a tool for quickly creating these containers. And quick, I mean seconds, like a new Docker container like this, just seconds. Reliably, every single container is identical every single time. It's always exactly the same, every container that you create. And these containers are actually created. So each container that you create, each time you create a Docker container, it's like, well, it's actually created new. It's new. It's entirely independent from every other Docker container in the world. I thought about, Dell computers. They manufacture a computer and they've got software pre-installed, and everyone is exactly the same. But Docker containers are like that, except they're, you can create infinity of them. They don't take raw materials and so forth. They're predefined. They create predefined containers. What that means is that you define the software that you want installed on there. So you can pre-configure what tools you want to be in that execution environment. So I'm going to demonstrate a Docker container that includes the Salesforce CLI. So if you've heard about the Salesforce CLI, you can run any of those commands in there. And the container that I'm going to demo, it also has JavaScript, it has Node, it has Java, it has Git, it has Perl, it has a bunch of things in there. That is all pre-installed in the container. It's predefined, and you can run any programs that use those tools. So these are containers, which means that they're like virtual machines, which are been around for a while, but they're lighter and faster than virtual machines. Okay, so what is Docker used for? Roughly speaking, it's used for three things. It's used for development, to create a development environment where the developer doesn't have to pre-install the tools. Everything's in there already, and then every developer can have exactly identical Docker images as their basis for their development environment. It's used for actual running production applications. And that's one of the beauties of it, is because it'll be exactly the same in production as it is in development. So you don't have to worry about the servers maybe changed a little bit. These are things that people in Salesforce don't generally have to think about at all, because Salesforce takes care of that. But the area that we want to focus on here, our focus, is this bit in the middle, the CI/CD. So CI/CD is a process generally for moving things from development to production. And you are doing that in Salesforce. If you have a dev sandbox or scratch orgs, you're moving the metadata over into your production org. The smoothest, best way you need to be using is CI/CD. And Docker has a great application there because it allows you to run very consistent jobs, very consistent CI/CD jobs for this. Okay, wrong button. All right, that's what Docker is. Why should you care? First, because you like to know things. Second of all, because CI/CD is the best way to deploy easily and make your orgs consistent. Your orgs need to be consistent. If you're spending any time thinking, well, it worked in QA, why isn't it working in UAT? Why isn't it working in production? That's wasted effort. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your life, you're wasting other people's times. Your orgs need to become consistent, and the only way to do that is using CI/CD. Docker is, in my humble opinion, the easiest way to get started with CI/CD. It allows a really nice, easy way to get this train moving, this deployment pipeline moving, because Docker is supported by almost every CI tool. So if you're using Jenkins or Azure DevOps or whatever, maybe you're not using those things, maybe somebody else in your team or your company is. Docker is very portable like this. And if you want to customize the tools that you have available to run, that's not hard to do. You can easily create your own images, but you don't have to, and that's what dockerhub is for. It provides you access to pre-built images. Okay, how do you use Docker for CI/CD? Crazy easy. So 6 steps, and I'll demo this at the end. First of all, create a new code repository, for example, on bitbucket.org. Second of all, create a file called bitbucketpipelines.yml. And again, if you email abd3@sendyourslides.com, it'll magically send your slides to your spam folder. So you create this file, and then paste the code that's here and commit the file. And this code here just has 6 lines, and really there's only 2 lines that matter much. The first line here, which says the image name, and that's actually the name of the Docker image. So the Docker image here we're suggesting is Appirio/DX. And then there's a few lines of structural stuff. And then at the bottom, it's just sfdx force-help. Just shows that the sfdx tool is installed. So paste that code, commit the file, then click pipelines in Bitbucket, and you'll just watch that code run. So you can go from Bitbucket, where people normally use Bitbucket just, to store code. So here's like a little bit of code stored in Bitbucket. But if you come in here, you can actually that code just runs automatically. It runs magically through Bitbucket pipelines, and that's what a CI/CD system does. A CI/CD system is what brings your version control repository to life and makes it do something and not just be a chore that you have to maintain. Once you've got this is your hello world setup, then you need to add your Salesforce metadata, improve this script, and so forth. But this is your first step. So if all you want to do is use Docker, for example, for CI/CD, all you need is the name of a trusted Docker image. And for example, you can go over to dockerhub and you can search for any Docker image that you want. So here, for example, you can use the image AppirioDX. So AppirioDX is a Docker image. It contains the Salesforce CLI. It contains AppirioDX itself, which is a custom-built tool to ease many aspects of the Salesforce deployment process. It includes all your old favorites, like Force.com migration tool, May it rest in peace, Ant, Gradle, Java, and so forth. So a lot of tools are in there already, just ready to go, and you can use that now in any code repo. Now for the intermediate step, if you want to customize that, if you want to create your own Docker image or build off of the one that we gave you, that's not too hard either. There's only 3 steps. First of all, you create a file called a Docker file. The name of the file is actually Docker file. Second of all, you build a Docker image from that file. So you create a Docker image from that file. And finally, you publish that image someplace like dockerhub. To create that Docker image, there's 3 ways to do that. One, on your local machine, you can download Docker and you can run docker build, and it'll build that file into an image. The second option is that there are some services. There's one called CodeFresh, where you can put a Docker file in there and they'll build a Docker image for you. But your easiest option is to auto-build a Docker image using dockerhub. So dockerhub itself has a service where it'll basically just say, oh, look, your code repo changed. Well, we'll build you a new version of that Docker file. So that's what I'm going to demo. So I've introduced these 3 terms, Docker file, Docker image, and then Docker container. Docker file is the definition. I mentioned it's predefined. That Docker file defines what you put in that image. The image is kind of like an image or a snapshot of a virtual machine. That's the thing, that's the template that's cloned anytime you want to create a container. And in a CI/CD context, every time you run a job, it creates a container, destroys it at the end. Creates a container, destroys it at the end. So it's similar to scratch orgs. People have compared scratch orgs and Docker images or Docker containers to one another. So a simple Docker file. This is actually not even the simplest one, but the simple version. At the beginning, it says from node. Every Docker file starts with from something, because Docker builds on some other pre-existing base, like Ubuntu or something like that. Here, from node, and then here I'm setting 3 environment variables. And then I'm using npm to install the Salesforce CLI, and then I'm running one command, sfdx force help. That's all this file does. And that's the basic syntax for Docker files. They're very, very simple. Again, this Docker file then is used to create the image, which is your template, and that can be used to create infinite containers. So putting it all together, so you've got a Docker file. You use that to create a Docker image that you can host, for example, on dockerhub. And then in Bitbucket, you can use Bitbucket pipelines, which is a built-in CI/CD tool for Bitbucket. It reads this Bitbucket pipelines YML file, which is the configuration file, which just tells it what to do. And it says, oh, yeah, go use that AppirioDX Docker image. It goes and gets it from dockerhub. and then creates a new Docker container from that, pulls your Salesforce metadata in, and then deploys that to Salesforce. This is all you need as a CI/CD system for your company. That's the basics, the basic architecture there. I offered you a technical note for nerds. This is great. Any non-nerds are welcome to leave at this point in the presentation. So Docker uses a layered file system. So what does that mean? It means that images, Docker images, are always built on top of other images. And adding a tool just adds another layer on top of that image. And so what that means is you can build off of any existing Docker image, including AppirioDX. So we created AppirioDX, but you can build on top of that. You can add your own tools on there. So the way it works is, let's say you've got this image 1.0, and then you want to add a bit of software like Apache, which you're not using in Salesforce. Then that gets built into image 1.1. Let's say you want to add another bit of software. You want to add Git. Great. That gets built into image 1.2. And then you can add your source code for your particular project and so forth. And that's how a layered file system works. That's it. Now, demonstration. So in French for our French-speaking audience members. So I'm just going to do all of this, so pray for me, please. I'm going to go and create a new repository on Bitbucket. I'm going to call this Docker Demo 4. And I'm just going to create it. That's all. And then I'm going to create a file not called I'm going to go to pipelines here. And I'm going to create a Bitbucket pipeline. And I'm just going to start using pipelines. I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to destroy all of this, and I'm going to replace it with this file. So I put this in, I commit the file, and notice image, I put specified the image in there, and then it's just running. That's it. So I specified which image I wanted to use, and I'm just going to run the sfdx help command. I'm not going to make you wait 10 seconds, but I can show you that this is what it looks like when it runs. It just shows that help command. I just did CI/CD in like 30 seconds, so that's kind of cool. So that was part one of the tutorial. That was using. That was the one I told you was very easy. So now for the also kind of really easy part, I'm going to add another file. I'm going to build my own Docker image. So I'm going to create a file. I told you it had to be called Docker file. And I'm going to go and I'm going to copy my Docker file here. And notice I'm building it from Node, and I'm just installing the Salesforce DX CLI. That's all I'm going to do here. I'm going to install it. And I've saved that to my code repository. Now I'm going to go over to dockerhub. Clearly, there's nothing up my sleeves here. I'm going over to dockerhub. I'm going to create on dockerhub Docker Demo 4. I'm going to make this public. I'm going to say, hey, I'm already connected to Bitbucket, ABD3, and I want to use Docker Demo. Come on. Docker Demo 4. I know you're out there. All right. Did I make my repo? I might not have made it. It's in here somewhere. Docker Demo 4 and me and well, all right. I'll just build it based on an old one. That's fine. They're all the same. So now I'm using Docker Hub to auto-build a repository here. I'm using Docker Hub to auto-build a Docker image from my repository. And so in here, it's going to automatically build my own Docker image, which would then be available for anybody else to pull. They could come to Docker and say, oh, yeah, I want to use that also. You can have private ones if you want, but these are public ones. And what this looks like, well, anyway, that's basically how it looks. And I've got my 30 seconds left. So I'm going to go back to the slides and say thank you very much. That's basically how it all works. Hope that was useful. Check out AppirioDX, which is a Salesforce CI/CD solution that's built using Docker and runs on any CI system that you want. And again, you can email that address to get a copy of these slides. So 15 seconds left. How often does that happen? So Thank you guys very much. I'll be available afterwards if you have any questions, or come see us at the booth. Oh yeah, and get your badge scanned and you'll get a free email from Appirio.